Good morning, everyone. I'm Paul Smedberg, Chair of the WMATA Board. Thank you for being here. This is our June 24th, 2021 board meeting. I'll now ask Board Corporate Secretary Ms. Ellison to call the roll. Ms. Ellison.
Thank you. Chair Smedberg.
Present.
Vice Chair Genevieve Jenkins.
Present.
Vice Chair Goldman.
Present.
Director McMillan.
Here.
Director Letourneau.
Present.
Director Babers.
Present.
And Director Slater.
Present.
Alternate Director Rath. Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. Now we'll move on to the approval of the agenda. First, we have the approval of the agenda. I move approval of the agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McMillan. Any discussion? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Thank you so much. Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. We have 4 sets of minutes for approval today: the May 13th, 2021 board meeting and executive session, and the June 10th, 2021 board meeting and executive session. I'd like to consider these minutes approved as presented. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved as presented. Next, we'll move to our safety contact. We have our Chief Safety Officer, Teresa Empasado, with us. Ms. Empasado.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. National Scoliosis Awareness Month takes place each June with the goal of highlighting the growing need for education, early detection, and awareness about scoliosis and its presence within the community. Scoliosis is a spinal abnormality that affects many children, adolescents, and adults. There is no known method of prevention for this very common condition, making early detection and treatment a priority. Children should be screened regularly for scoliosis by a medical professional who can identify, monitor, and treat the condition. Adults also benefit from screening, as the aging process can cause or intensify symptoms of scoliosis or a related condition. This year, it's especially important to undergo screenings, as many families may have delayed or otherwise deferred routine medical exams during the pandemic. Talk with your doctor about scoliosis screenings for yourself and your loved ones. For more information, visit the Scoliosis Research Society at srs.org. This concludes our safety contact.
Thank you. Put their, we're not talking, that would be helpful. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the public comment period and reports from our advisory boards. First, we'll hear from our customers and stakeholders who submitted comments for the board. We received 27 comments, mostly regarding the bus fleet electrification. Staff will read the first 15 comments received, and the rest will be posted on wmata.com. Ms. Ellison, we're ready for the comments now.
Thank you. We'll bring up the comments right now. I'd just like to ask, since we do have a couple audio comments, if everybody could mute their microphones so that we don't get any feedback.
Hello, my name is Gurkirat Pander. My city is Severn, Maryland, and my county is Anne Arundel. I have a disability, and so I have a smart rate enabled disability Metro card, and I'm also a federal employee. My officer has directed me to use Apple Pay, but this disability card does not allow Apple Pay. So I want to request, please allow Apple Pay enabled smart cards for disabled people also. I'll be thankful to you. You can reach me at 202-304-5947. Thank you.
Our next comment is from Alec Williams from Arlington County. Please speed up the process of electrifying your bus fleet so that we can cut emissions in our area and have healthier air. I also find investments in CNG to be unacceptable, and that money should be used for electric buses and emissions reductions.
Our next comment is from Alex Baca from Greater Washington. On behalf of Greater Washington, I am submitting this comment in support the permanent elimination of the transfer fare penalty. It is far past the time to shed the transfer penalty, which literally punishes people for riding transit, which is something that transit agency of all agencies should be encouraging. We also request that the Metro Board of Directors lead the agency to expand Metro bus service at all hours and decouple both bus and rail service from the notion of peak commute times. Ridership trends during the pandemic clearly demonstrated that Metro's core constituency is working class bus riders who maintain and expanded ridership despite cuts to rail service. And it should heed that relevation, which advocates have long known, as it considers its service planning and forthcoming networking redesign. The DC region deserves frequent, reliable transportation at all hours, not solely during traditional rush hours, which are about to look like quite antiquated notion. White-collar workers will take advantage of their economic and social privileges to create their own schedules, while workers considered essential during the pandemic will be more greatly fixed to a specific location for their work. Frequent and reliable bus service at late night and early morning hours will correctly acknowledge that Metro cares about its existing customers and is putting energy into serving them rather than attracting choice riders or imaginary. Thank you.
Our next comment is from Donald Byrne of Montgomery County, Maryland. Please stop further investment in compressed natural gas buses and fueling infrastructure. A planned $5 million investment now will only anchor WMATA to fossil fuels for years to come. Prioritize electric buses in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods where people suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution. Accelerate the rollout of battery electric buses to truly reduce harmful emissions.
Next one, Jennifer Hindle, District of Columbia. WMATA should move aggressively to move toward use of electric buses and should not invest additional money into natural gas buses.
Next comment is from Ivan McFinsky, Montgomery County, Maryland. To Board of Directors, switching to electric buses will significantly move our community towards a sustainable future. This is important for everyone and a high priority for those of us with children. Our desire to live in a world that cares and demonstrates that concern for the well-being of the members of the community is the type of society we all want. While the expense may seem high now, putting off the task of improving our communities will only increase the costs, both in resources and lives, if we put this off for a future date. Act now.
Next comment, Donald Wash, Arlington, Virginia. Stop further investment in compressed natural gas, buses, and fueling infrastructure. A planned $5 million investment now will only anchor WMATA to fossil fuels for years to come. Prioritize electric buses in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods where people suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution. Accelerate the rollout of battery electric buses and truly reduce harmful emissions.
Next is Tacey Lambiase of Montgomery County, Maryland. Climate action cannot wait, and it is imperative for WMATA to act as quickly as possible to eliminate all fossil fuel buses from its fleet. To that end, stop further investment in compressed natural gas buses and fueling infrastructure. A planned $5 million investment now will only anchor WMATA to fossil fuels for years to come. Prioritize electric buses in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods where people suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution. Accelerate the rollout of battery electric buses to truly reduce harmful emissions. Thank you.
Andrew Thornburg, Fairfax County, Virginia. As a resident of the DC metro area, I would like to voice my desire for WMATA to cease additional investment in compressed natural gas buses and fueling infrastructure. Prioritize electric buses in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods where people suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution. Accelerate the rollout of battery electric buses to truly reduce harmful emissions, and an additional $5 million investment in fossil fuel systems and infrastructure is the wrong strategic move to make it to make at this inflection point in the global struggle against climate change. While the DC metro area's air quality has improved significantly since my childhood, I want to see that progress to continue with less societal reliance on fossil fuels. Renewable energy-based manned transit options are a huge part of that future I envision for my children.
Our next comment is from Joshua Grissett of the Sierra Club. Stop further investment in compressed natural gas buses and fueling infrastructure. A planned $5 million investment now will only anchor WMATA to fossil fuels for years to come. Prioritize electric buses in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods where people suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution. Accelerate the rollout of battery electric buses to truly reduce harmful emissions.
Robert Williamson, Montgomery County, Maryland. Electric is the way to go. No reasonable pathway via more LNG investment.
Next is from Danny Dredger of Montgomery County. If WMATA postpones its phase out of fossil fuel bus purchases beyond 2025 by investing in compressed natural gas, the economic, climate, and public health benefits of electrification would be unnecessarily delayed. Climate action cannot wait, and it is imperative for WMATA to act as quickly as possible to eliminate all fossil fuel buses from its infrastructure. A planned $5 million investment now will only anchor WMATA to fossil fuels for years to come. Prioritize electric buses in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods where people suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution. Accelerate the rollout of battery electric buses to truly reduce harmful emissions.
Hello, WMATA board members. My name is Hector Wetzel with Jobs to Move America. I'm submitting this video as well as the attached document to raise concerns about your largest supplier of transit buses, New Flyer. You may be aware that New Flyer has multiple North American facilities, but their plants in Anniston, Alabama, and Shepherdsville, Kentucky, both have an alarming track record of worker mistreatment and pay disparities between Black and white workers. A report released earlier this year by the University of Alabama A&M surveyed workers where Black employees reported earning an average of $6,500 less per year than their white counterparts, being injured with more frequency, and reported being fearful of retaliation for raising product safety concerns at rates significantly higher than their white counterparts. The fact sheet attached to my email goes into further detail, and while New Flyer has said it is addressing these issues, I and other organizations on the ground do not believe that New Flyer has demonstrated that it can be accountable only to itself. This is why we're joining with local organizations and workers to call for a community benefits agreement where residents surrounding New Flyer's facilities can have a role in helping this company become a better employer and better neighbor for residents in the South who need access to good paying jobs and benefits without fear of retaliation. I want to urge you to ask the New Flyer to address these concerns and join us in supporting a community benefits agreement with local organizations around New Flyer's facilities. Thank you.
Our next comment is from Ross Jesperson of Montgomery County, Maryland. Stop further investment in compressed natural gas buses and fueling infrastructure. A planned $5 million investment now will only anchor WMATA to fossil fuels for years to come. Prioritize electric buses in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods where people suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution. Accelerate the rollout of battery electric buses to truly reduce harmful emissions. If WMATA postpones its phase out of fossil fuel bus purchases beyond 2025 by investing in CNG, the economic, climate, and public health benefits of electrification would be unnecessarily delayed. Climate action cannot wait, and it is imperative for WMATA to act as quickly as possible to eliminate all fossil fuel buses from its fleet. It is very frustrating to see electric battery vehicle technology advance rapidly year over year, but WMATA continues to delay investment and adoption of this technology and instead invest in an adequate solution. Our final comment is from Linda Murphy of Prince George's County, Maryland. stop further investments in compressed natural gas buses and fueling infrastructure. A planned $5 million investment now will only anchor WMATA to fossil fuels for years to come. Prioritize electric buses in low-income and disadvantaged neighborhoods where people suffer disproportionately from the impacts of air pollution. Accelerate the rollout of battery electric buses to truly reduce harmful emissions. Mr. Chair, we will post the remaining comments on WMATA.com for the public to review. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pasek. Appreciate that. And thank you everyone for your comments. And again, as Mr. Pasek just said, the remaining comments will be posted on WMATA.com. Next, we'll hear from the Accessibility Advisory Committee Chair, Phil Posner. Philip, are you with us?
Yes, I'm there, but my camera has gone off. But you'll have a voice.
Okay, well, we can hear you. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Good morning. I hope that you're all enjoying the start of summer as we look forward to the move towards a new normal and a waning pandemic. The AAC has been following the board's discussions on preparing for sustainability in the face of the evolving new normal, while WMATA develops programs to enhance the quality of life for socioeconomically challenged members of the community. You've also been planning ways to recover lost ridership while working with the jurisdictions in their stewardship of the environment and implementing programs and principles presented in the Bus Transformation Project. The last 2 months, Mr. Smedberg, Mr. Wiedefeld, and most recently Ms. Babers attended our meetings and participated in discussions of these issues. The members of the AAC and public in attendance at these meetings were very supportive of the board's stated goals of safety, accessibility, and sustainability. We look forward to Ms. Baber's presentation later in the meeting. There was also support for pilots that would gather data to show the sustainability of the fare policy pilots and service adjustments to bus, rail, and metro access that would increase access for economically challenged passengers. Recently, staff members Hamry, Nisi, and Goins visited and continued the discussions they have had with the AAC about bus route changes and floating bus stops, rail announcements, and escalator lighting, as well as the new signage being implemented at the bus stops on a trial basis. These updates were a result of several discussions about enhancing signage, lighting, and announcements that they and their staff held with the AAC. The AAC is very supportive of the goals for enhanced service, social equity, and sustainability championed in several board meetings by Mr. Wiedefeld, Ms. Babers, Ms. Gitteby, Mr. Goldman, Mr. Letourneau, Secretary Slater, and Chair Smedberg. The concept of pilot programs to assess their viability will provide hard data, which should be the basis for making future adjustments to capital and operational programs. This hard data can be integrated with the models that Tom Webster has been using to give you future predictions. Thank you all for all the hard work on equity and sustainability. And I'm happy to answer any questions and wish you all a happy 4th of July.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate those words. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Posner? Seeing none. Philip, well, I'd like to say personally and on behalf of the board how much we appreciate all the work the ACC does. We know you're a very active and committed committee, and I know staff has really appreciated the interactions that they've had with you all, and the things that you advocate for and bring forward to us have really helped Metro in many, many ways, and I don't think people realize that. So thank you for your committee's work. Appreciate it.
And thank you. We really appreciate all the cooperation we have had from staff, from Mr. Wiedefeld's group, and from the board. And you're all doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Next is the Riders Advisory Council Chair, Brian Mayer, sorry. Hey, Brian, how are you?
Good. Chairman Smedberg and members of the Board of Directors, thank you so much for having me this morning. And more importantly, I just wanted to thank you very much for the recent approval of some of these substantive changes to Metro Rail and Metrobus service and fares, which will be enacted over the course of this summer and the next coming months. These were recommended by the WMATA staff as well as the Riders Advisory Council in the report that we submitted earlier this month. It was very clear, looking at the reports and the changes, that the WMATA staff had done their due diligence in analyzing the impact that these service and fare changes would have on ridership and in turn revenue projections. It's also clear that these changes that were adopted by the Board of Directors were constructed and approved through a framework prioritizing customer convenience, seamlessness, as well as equity. And anecdotally, I can say that these new changes to service and fare structure that are going to be rolled out have been well received to the public and is sending the message that WMATA is ready to start opening up and be ready for some of the expected increased demands that we'll be seeing as well. And I think some members of the public, I know one of the people that made a public comment, Alex, earlier in this meeting, I think will be pleasantly surprised by some of those changes that are going to be rolled out. And lastly, as more and different service changes and fare policies start to be discussed, the Riders Advisory Council stands ready to participate in those discussions and advise the board as necessary. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian. And again, appreciate the work. And I know people are looking forward to a new direction with Iraq and engagement. So appreciate your leadership in the coming months.
Most definitely. Thank you so much.
For Brian. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Now we'll move to the chair's report. Before I recognize our outgoing members, I'd like to take this opportunity to reflect on what WMATA has accomplished in the past year. First, let me say how much I deeply appreciate the extraordinary commitment of time and effort from this board throughout the life-altering pandemic and our nation's racial reckoning. The collective expertise, wisdom, and collaboration of each of you and management is inspiring and has prepared Metro to support the region's recovery. And I also, beyond what the board has done, I really do have to call out Mr. Wiedefeld and his team and the extraordinary efforts and all the issues that they've had to deal with over the last months, and have really stepped up and really appreciated that collaboration. Even with the challenges of the pandemic, we've been able to set the table for success in our return to stability through fare and service improvements, our transit equity framework, and establishing a sustainability policy for the next generation. As a board, you have served our customers with unmatched dedication this year, and I personally want to thank you for that. So we look forward to new board members joining this great team, but first, let's honor our outgoing members for their tremendous service. And I have to say, wish we could do this in person, but here we are. It is what it is. And first, I'd like to recognize the DC board member, Stephanie Gideby Jenkins. As the commendation reflects, Stephanie has served the board, Metro, and our customers with hard work and staunch commitment. We will miss her leadership and dedication to ensuring Metro works for everyone. I now move approval of the following resolution. Whereas Stephanie Gideby Jenkins has faithfully represented the District of Columbia on the Metro Board since December 2019, and whereas Ms. Gideby Jenkins served as the board's first vice chair and on its Safety and Operations Committee, and whereas Ms. Gideby Jenkins' term coincided with unprecedented change and disruption to the transit industry brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic, And whereas Ms. Gideby Jenkins strongly supported opportunities to improve service for all of Metro riders. And whereas recognizing public transit's role in strengthening communities and ensuring access to opportunity, Ms. Gideby Jenkins was a steadfast advocate for adopting Metro's service and fare model to strengthen its focus on providing equitable service. Whereas Ms. Gideby Jenkins was a committed supporter of including Metro riders and the community that Metro serves in its board's decision-making. And whereas a champion of transparency for a strong proponent of citizen-led governance, Ms. Gideby Jenkins was instrumental in creating the Metro Transit Police Investigation Review Panel. And whereas recognizing public transit's role in combating climate change and its responsibility to partner with the neighborhoods it serves, Ms. Gideby Jenkins has been a steadfast supporter of actions to increase Metro sustainability. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the WMATA Board of Directors offers its sincere gratitude to Stephanie Gideby Jenkins for her service and leadership as a member of the WMATA Board of Directors, and be it further resolved that the WMATA Board of Directors commends Stephanie Gideby Jenkins for her dedication to providing the best service for Metro customers and the region. Is there a second?
I second.
I think I hear a unanimous second led by Ms. Babers. Would any board members like to say a few words? Ms. Babers, I'll start with you.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So Stephanie, I'd just like to thank you for everything you have done on the board on behalf of the District of Columbia. And it is clear that you have given me quite the challenge to keep up with in terms of being the DC representative on the board. But we appreciate it and know that you have other things that you need to focus on. But on behalf of the District of Columbia, the Mayor Bowser, DC Council, thank you so much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Secretary Slater?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to offer my thanks to Stephanie as well from Maryland. I can say that she not only made the board better, but she made each one of us as board members better with her advice and counsel and leadership. So thank you. And I hope you stay in touch with us, and I hope you stay engaged with us as a board so we can continue down this path.
Okay. Mr. McMillan.
Thanks. Stephanie, I want to say how much I've enjoyed being your board colleague. Very soon after your appointment, you reached out to have a private conversation with me. I think it was obvious to both of us that we came from somewhat different backgrounds, perspective, ideologies, and yet from the very beginning, your focus was to, even learn from someone who didn't necessarily start from your same perspective and look for that common ground. And I think we found it far more often than otherwise. And I very much appreciated the focus you've tried to give the board on that segment of our customer base that is, much more dependent, much more needful of the services we provide to the region. So thank you for that. And I hope that legacy of yours persists as we continue our work without you. Thanks, Stephanie.
Mr. Letourneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So perhaps a little similar to Steve. Sometimes Stephanie and I come from a little different perspectives, but she has really been a great colleague, and we have worked through those things. And I think to echo something Steve said, I think your voice, Stephanie, has been particularly important during this last year with the pandemic and the way that you've highlighted some of the gaps and needs that we have and pushed us to fill those. And I'm appreciative for that. We were kind of the new kids on the block together. You have a few more months before I did, but not too much. So we kind of went through this together, and it's been great getting to know you and working with you. And I wish you nothing but the best in the future.
Thanks, Matt. Mr. Wiedefeld.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stephanie, I just want to thank you for all the work you've done with our staff. You've spent hours upon hours working with all ranges of staff members here. And I can tell you they appreciate it. They appreciate your input and to working with them to understand some of the issues that we face. So I just appreciate you taking the time to do that. So thank you and all the best to you.
Okay. Well, Stephanie, I think Greg said it best when he said that, your voice, your advocacy, your commitment to all the riders and making us aware of certain issues made us all better and made our decisions better. And I sincerely mean that. And I appreciated the conversations that we had and the things I learned. And I did learn quite a bit from you. So really appreciate that and appreciate your openness and willingness to work with all of us and to understand too where some of us were coming from at times. But it all did work, and I think we all got to a much better place. So thank you for your time on this board. And now it's your opportunity if you'd like to say anything.
No problem. One, I just want to thank each and every one of my board colleagues for just being able to be open and working specifically with me on many of the visions of what it means to really ensure that Metro works for all of us. I want to personally thank both Pauls because following the pandemic, it was very personal for me in terms of making sure that Metro was meeting the needs of those who were still transit dependent through the global pandemic. For me, my neighbor literally next door, Miss Wendy, would wake up for the 6:30 bus, and a couple of times it not arriving was something that was hard because her mother is disabled, and so she would have to try to find a way to get to work, and she would call me. And so the stories that I would share with you all were personal to the realities of what our regional riders who are dependent on transit, but more so Metro, working for them every single day through this pandemic where many of us could work from home. I want to also just thank the general manager more specifically, because following the racial discord that was really arising nationally, I really saw the opportunity for us to really take all the work that he had been doing over the last couple of years to really support the cultural change within Metro to really advance and work with both Paul and I to advance a transit equity framework that was really looking at all of our areas within the system to work in at every level. And it was really powerful, and it has been very powerful to see everything from the recommendations from the bus transformation project, which was one of the first things that I had a privilege of voting on, but seeing many of those recommendations really coming through, having bus standards that we hadn't had approved or hadn't updated in 20 years, being able to see the transfer to rail penalty being removed was a huge win for advocates in the region. The sustainability pieces that we worked on, working very closely with the chief on the Metro police issues. And so when I say it's been a privilege to serve, even more now during this time, it is truly an honor, and I just want to thank everyone. I also want to personally speak to the staff, in part because they have taken the shoes off their feet to allow me to inspect the tracks, and going and seeing the amount of investment that is required to maintain a legacy system is not a small feat. And Paul has prioritized, and this entire board has prioritized safety. And I'm excited that we're also now focusing on service. And I hope that as we enter into this new decade, that we will continue to prioritize those who are most dependent on the system working for them, but also for the future of our region. And so I want to thank everyone for the privilege to serve. I really do believe in the notion of a transitional governance that really supports systems change. So I love to come in, offer the changes that need to happen, and also make my exit after things have been completed. So I thank you for the privilege to serve. I thank you for all that we've been able to achieve. It is truly an honor. I can remember taking the Fairfax connector to get to the Hill. And when I would miss that bus, how critical it would be, or if the train was delayed. I can remember having to rely on getting to USDOT, and the late nights that I would spend there, and literally taking the last green line to get to my stop. And so as a DC resident now, living in Congress Heights, Ward 8, one of the most underinvested in terms of those who are most dependent on transit working for them, the stories became even more personal. And so it's been a privilege to continue to use Metro through the pandemic, but also to serve those whose voices are often not heard on boards like this. So thank you again for the privilege.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, we have a motion on the table and a unanimous second. Board members led by Deputy Mayor Babers. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you. And again, Stephanie, thank you for your leadership and best of luck in your next chapter. And congratulations to you and your husband on your new baby girl. Very exciting for you. So again, thank you so much. I'd also like to note today that this is Mr. Goldman's last board meeting, but we will recognize him next month at our July 29th meeting. With Stephanie and Michael's departures, we will need to appoint a new chair of the Safety and Operations Committee. Therefore, I move that Director Matt Letourneau become the new chair of the Safety and Operations Committee. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McMillan, or Secretary Slater. Secretary Slater. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Ellison, please call the roll.
Chair Smedberg?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gideon Jenkins?
Aye.
Vice Chair Goldman?
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
Aye,
Vice
aye.
Chair Goldman?
Aye, aye.
Mr. McMillan?
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau?
Aye.
Ms. Babers?
Aye.
Secretary Slater?
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. The Maryland position on the Safety and Operations Committee will remain open until the new Maryland member is appointed next month. This concludes my report. Now I'll turn the floor over to the General Manager, Paul Wiedefeld, for his report. Mr. Wiedefeld.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Good morning.
As this is the last board meeting of this fiscal year, and recognizing that some board seats are changing, I do want to take a moment to reflect on the past year and to thank the board for its leadership. Together, we faced a number of unprecedented challenges that tested our agility and required nimble policy setting and decision-making to serve our customers and the region. The board undertook an amazing breadth of work to help guide Metro as we responded to a period of safety, customer service, and financial challenges, including advancing a new transit equity framework, which has delivered better service and will continue to guide our work this fall as we discuss fare structures and policy, developing a sustainable vision and principles, along with the zero emission vehicle goals that will enhance environmental stewardship and protect public health, navigating the pandemic with necessary fare and service changes to serve our customers, and capped with the acceleration of a capital program and the sale of green bonds to get as much safety and reliability work done as possible during this time. The board's leadership and the stewardship has been instrumental this year. With each decision, it was clear that you have been guided by your commitment to the region, our customers, and the Metro team. And finally, I do always want to thank our frontline employees for all that they do, and particularly during this last year, where they took the risk of their health and welfare to serve the customers and to serve the board and to serve the leadership of the team. So again, I want to thank the board for everything they've done and our frontline employees. That concludes my remarks for today.
Thank you, Mr. Wiedefeld. Does anyone have a comment or question for Mr. Wiedefeld? Okay. Hearing none. Thank you, Paul. Really do appreciate, as I said earlier, really do appreciate the work that you and your team and the staff, and as you rightly point out, the frontline workers who really did step up throughout this pandemic and made sure that people could get to work, the people who are transit dependent, the people who had to be there serving folks and working throughout this to get to where they had to be, was so important. So please pass that on, when you meet, with your teams, how much we appreciate all that they've done this past year. So
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next, we have a report by the Executive Committee. The following item was referred to the board at the June 10th Executive Committee meeting. Staff sought adoption of sustainability vision and principles and zero emission vehicle goals. The adoption of a sustainability vision and principles set direction for its implementation through the capital improvement program, operational planning, and strategic engagement throughout the region. The zero emission vehicle goals direct staff to undertake the following actions. Purchase only low or electric buses in the next procurement. Transition to 100% zero emission bus purchases by 2030. And transition to a 0% emission bus fleet by 2045. I'd like to move approval of this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Gideby Jenkins. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah.
Chairman, I do have some
Yeah.
discussion. Thank you. I did not support this resolution when it came before the Executive Committee 2 weeks ago, and I'm in the same posture today. It sets goals that, in my view, are too limited and too narrow, and I think that's reflected in many of the public comments you heard earlier in today's board meeting. The 100% zero emission buses goal will not be achieved until 2045, and the 50% of a zero emission bus goal will not be reached, according to the staff's slides, until 2035, 2036. Metro must be a leader in moving to an all-electric fleet. Instead, it will be an also-ran in this region. Contrary to what WMATA plans to do in this resolution, Maryland has set a 2030 goal as the target for 50% zero emission buses in the state's public transit fleet. Montgomery County, where I'm a resident, has set a goal of 100% zero emission buses by 2035, 10 years ahead of the Metro goal we will vote on today. And the city of Alexandria, so this is not all things that are happening in Maryland, has set a goal of 100% zero emission fleet by 2035. Again, 8 years before the Metro goal we'll vote on today. If we don't set ambitious goals, we will always be the laggard in the region and not the leader. As a first step, in terms of a better goal, I think it would have been to set as a goal that we purchase only electric buses in the next procurement, not some mix of zero emission buses and diesel hybrid buses contemplated by the resolution before us today. So I think Metro should do better, and so I cannot support this resolution today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Mr. McMillan.
Thanks. So I did support this prior, and I will be supporting this resolution today. I just want the record to reflect that a zero emission goal for our vehicles has merit. It is not something I think we should pursue blindly to the exclusion of other important considerations regarding cost, reliability, our ability to serve the traveling public, which is our primary mission here, of course. And so I am supportive of this goal with the understanding that guiding principle number 5 in particular will be driving our specific procurement decisions down the road. Principle number 5, charging management to make cost-effective and data-driven business decisions that provide WMATA and its partners with the best return.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McMillan. Mr. Letourneau.
Thank you. I will be supporting the resolution. I appreciate the work that has gone into this from staff. There has been this has been an extensive process, and I think perhaps not one that the public has necessarily realized was going on, but one that has become evident over the last several months as we've been able to have more public discussions about this, and as regional leaders throughout the region have been briefed as to what Metro has been doing. Metro is a very large system. The bus system is very large. It serves a lot of different people in multiple jurisdictions. And so moving in this manner and setting these goals will require a lot of investment. And therefore, it's something that's important that the whole region be invested in and discuss and be ready for. But it also can't turn on a dime. The reality is the amount of infrastructure required just to make this a reality is going to be extensive and requires quite a bit of advanced planning. So I think the goals and the timeframe set forth are quite reasonable. I do think that we should continue to make progress on emissions reductions as much as possible using every available technology moving forward. And then transition as soon as we can to zero emissions buses when they are available, reliable, and when we do have the full infrastructure able to support it. And what staff has laid out for us is a plan that does that. That has been thoughtful, that's looking at pilots, that's bringing different types of vehicles into our fleet to test, and will put us in a position of being able to actually achieve it. Because it's one thing to set a goal, but it's another thing to have a goal that's achievable. So I appreciate all the work that went into this, and I will support the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Letourneau. Deputy Mayor Babers.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So I will be supporting this resolution, but I just want to make sure that the public, especially DC residents and advocates, who I know that many of them are disappointed that it doesn't go far enough. And, bottom line is many of us on this board understand that WMATA has put in a lot of work, and this is just a start, and that there is absolutely nothing that prevents us in this resolution from moving quicker. This is just the absolute minimum requirement of when we need to get this done. But of course, we will be trying to, and the general manager has already assured the board that we will move as quickly as possible given resources.
Very good points. Thank you. Ms. Goodeby Jenkins.
I want to echo the sentiments in terms of my commitment to the sustainability vision that was laid forward, in addition to the fleet strategy that has been attached to this plan, as something that I will strongly support. I think it's very important for us to understand where we've come from in terms of Metro. Only a few years ago, and actually last year at the same time as we were getting a sustainability update, the focus was really around light improvement and an energy action plan. For us to be at a place where we're talking about resiliency policies that really support zero emission bus programs, a Metro fleet strategy that is going to engage jurisdictional partners in guiding WMATA's operations, planning, and decision-making is a huge success for our region. And the commitment to really purchasing only low emissions and electric buses in the next vehicle procurement cycle speaks to a huge shift of the board. It was only in 2017 that we were saying that it was going to be a 50-50 split between CNG and diesel. And the fact that we're at a place where we're saying that by 2030, we will have 100% zero emissions bus purchases is a big deal. It really does show WMATA as a regional leader. When you look at transit agencies nationally, there are not transit agencies this size that are leading the way, particularly on the East Coast. And so I know that there's more that we can do. I personally have a commitment to making sure that we get to a place where our air quality is not even a discussion, but we're not there yet. And so this 100% zero emissions bus fleet commitment by 2045 speaks to many of the goals that regional leaders have said. And, again, I want to thank the staff who have been working, who have been getting the feedback from jurisdictional partners, and who have continued to commit to hosting the conversations that will be required, because this is not just a commitment that Metro has to make, but it is one that jurisdictional partners will be doing. And the more that we work together on making sure that we can get to where we need to go to as quickly as possible for our future, the better we'll be. So as Deputy Mayor Babers has shared, this is the floor. This isn't the ceiling. And I hope that we can continue to build upon this by supporting and adopting this resolution and continuing to build upon it in the years to come. My final comments will be really about the financing. In order for us to get to 100% electric buses, we're going to also have the facilities in place that will also support that. And we're not there yet. It will require a huge investment, and it requires us to really think about how that cost will be paid for, to the extent that many of the federal leaders and state leaders who will be having to make those decisions on how we pay for these pieces can think of ways for us to fund the vision. I deeply encourage that level of support with the leadership of staff and our board to ensure that we really meet the goals that we're achieving for. I think all of the public comments that have come through, not just today, but over the last few months, the coalitions and the campaigns that have been run to ensure that we have a better future where all of us can thrive. Don't stop the fight. Keep us accountable to the things that we've said, but recognize that at this moment, this is a huge success for where we have been and where we're going.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I agree with the deputy mayor. I mean, I think this is, a floor, and I think there will hopefully be opportunities, as Ms. Gideby Jenkins just pointed out, with the new administration and the way Congress and others are highlighting these issues. Hopefully in the next few years, we can really move forward with funding and operational opportunities, at a level significant enough to really move this plan forward more quickly than one anticipated. But as Stephanie said, I mean, this is a big step forward, and I appreciate everyone's work on it. So we have a motion on the table, seconded by Ms. Gideby Jenkins. Ms. Ellison, please call the roll.
Chair Smedberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gideby Jenkins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goldman,
Abstain.
Mr. McMillan,
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau,
Aye.
Ms. Babers,
Aye.
Secretary Slater.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to the report by the Elections Committee. Now for the report from the Elections Committee, Ms. Gideby Jenkins. You're on mute, Stephanie.
Thank you, Chairman Smedberg. The committee voted to nominate Paul Smedberg as board chair, Lucinda Babers as first vice chair, and Greg Slater as the board's second vice chair. Mr. Chairman, I move approval of this slate of officers for the FY 2022 board officer nomination process.
Second.
Motion on the table, and I heard a second from...
That was me.
Oh, Mr. Letourneau. Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Ms. Ellison, please call the roll.
Chair Smedberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gideby Jenkins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goldman,
Aye.
Mr. McMillan,
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau,
Aye.
Ms. Babers,
Aye.
Secretary Slater.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. Next, we have, let's see, the two consent items on the agenda. First, we have the late night service program. Staff seeks approval to make the late night service program, which was begun as a pilot in July of 2019, permanent. This program provides subsidies for shared rides to and from work outside of Metro's regular service hours. And second, the American Rescue Plan Act allocation. Staff seeks board approval of the funding allocations generated from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 and the use of some of these funds to provide a subsidy credit to jurisdictional partners. I move approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Deputy Mayor Babers. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Ellison, please call the roll.
Chair Smedberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gideby Jenkins,
Aye.
Vice Chair Goldman,
Aye.
Mr. McMillan,
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau,
Aye.
Ms. Babers,
Aye.
Secretary Slater.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you, Ms. Ellison. Now we'll have reports by the jurisdictions. Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. I personally don't have anything to report Mr. Letourneau, anything on your behalf?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. All right. District of Columbia, Ms. Goodby Jenkins.
No updates at this time, but I'll also defer to Ms. Favors.
No updates.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goldman, WSTC.
Yes, thank you. As you, Mr. Chair, have pointed out, this is my final meeting before the board. It's been a great 8-year run. I see Ms. Goodby Jenkins is smiling, so like her, we enjoy ending our runs at this time. As you've put it out, I will have a successor to end the suspense. My successor's name is Don Drummer. Don is a resident of Prince George's County, a former U.S. military officer who has also held post-retirement from the military, some civilian positions, managerial positions with the FAA and the TSA. And I'm sure you will give him a warm welcome next month as a new principal member of the board from the state of Maryland. On another matter, I had planned to propose today a resolution proposing a fare waiver over the July 4th holiday that would cover Metro Rail, Metro Bus, and parking in Metro garages. So there would be no charge at all for use of Metro facilities over the 4th of July holiday weekend. The purpose of such a resolution, in my mind, would have been twofold. First, to support the July 4th celebrations on the Mall and elsewhere, proposed by President Biden and by Mayor Bowser, and encourage greater use of Metro for our people to get down and enjoy festivities throughout our whole area. This would have been Metro's contribution to a 2021 Capitol 4th, like we used to enjoy before last March. And it would also be to welcome our riders back to Metro, to give them a free day, to kick the tires, and to give them an opportunity to see that Metro is clean, safe, and reliable as they contemplate using Metro Rail and Metro Bus when they return to the office after Labor Day, or hopefully return to the office. Hopefully, we would have had an opportunity to increase our current level of ridership on Metro, which is still hovering at 15% of pre-COVID levels. So perhaps for a day, ridership would have been at 30% or 40% or maybe 50% of pre-COVID levels. But for now, there is no majority among my colleagues on the board for such bold action today. So maybe over the course of next week, my colleagues will reconsider their positions and some action can be taken before the July 4th holiday begins at the end of next week. Finally, Mr. Chairman, I would close by just paraphrasing what Edward R. Murrow said in his famous sign-off after his World War II broadcasts from London, and paraphrase it by saying good day and good luck. And that ends my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Federal government, Mr. McMillan.
No report from the federal government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McMillan. All right, with no further business to come before the board, we will stand adjourned, and I will move to executive session in accordance with the bylaws. I, Paul Smedberg, request that the Board of Directors convene an executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections A, budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contracts, or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions and the federal government. B, litigation, investigations, or other legal matters requiring provision of legal advice or consultation with counsel and staff members. And C, personnel or labor issues, including discussion of labor contracts and labor negotiations, consideration or interviews of candidates for employment, and the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, or resignation of individuals. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Letourneau. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you. We'll now convene an executive session. Thank you all for joining us for today's meeting.